Good afternoon, everyone. We'll call to order a meeting of Council and Committee. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Our first item is the minutes of the Council and Committee meeting held Monday, April 16th. Recommendations to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Councillor O'Neill, second by Councillor Robinson. All in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
We have one report of staff on the agenda today. This concerns the City Hall workspace study results. We have introductory comments by the General Manager of Parks, Recreation and Culture Services, followed by a presentation of the Manager of Parks and Open Space Services. The report is before you for information.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This fall, the City Centre Library will be relocating to their new home at 1169 Pine Tree Way. I know something that everyone's very much looking forward to. And that move, of course, is going to make available 11,000 square feet here at City Hall on the ground floor. Staff have undertaken a study to identify options for using this space on the ground floor to address the growing pressures for space at City Hall. A preferred plan was presented to the E-team and endorsed, and it's our pleasure to share the preferred plan with you today. Kathy Reinheimer has a presentation. She's our Manager of Parks and Facilities, and Kathy chaired the interdepartmental staff committee that has worked on this, and Kathy will present the findings of the committee.
Thank you, Your Worship. This presentation is a brief outline of what you've already got in front of you in the report, and I'd like to start by thanking the members of the steering committee. They're already people with lots on their workload, and they did a great job of getting together collaboratively and with a really positive approach to working out not only where we are now, but where we could go. As a group, they acted as liaisons to their own work units and did a lot of work both bringing feedback from their home teams to the committee and as well as reflecting those perspectives on the committee. That steering committee makeup is in front of you. Raul Alueva from Planning and Development, Mark Zaborniak from Engineering and Public Works, Stella Baglioni from RCMP, Jay Gilbert from the Clerk's Office, Leslie Guan represented Human Resources, Brent Cormack from Strategic Initiatives, and Dina Trudeau from Finance. I also want to introduce Laurie Bilson, who's our workspace planner who works for Omicron. The first task was to, I did hand out copies, hard copies, to make that a little bit easier for you to read. The first task was to assess our current conditions, how the space is being used now, how much growth is anticipated over the next 2 to 5 years, and where the pressure is being felt. This slide shows the existing ground floor with the library in white on the right. It looks like a vacant space, but of course they're still there. Strategic initiatives and some members of the environmental services section of engineering are located just by the rotunda, along with the print shop and corporate communications. The existing main floor slide shows roughly, we've taken some of the detail out, but it really illustrates 2 points. One of them is we quickly found that there are work teams that really are in the right place and they have the space they need to accommodate for them for the next period of time. Finance is a classic example of this. They just renovated their front desk and they have all the interface with the public and they're set up to do the customer services that they need to do there. One more point about this, what you see is that both the existing main floor space is actually our most crowded space, and it has over time grown to accommodate growth. What we know is that in the City Hall in general, we counted 16 either storage rooms or meeting rooms that have been turned into workspaces. And so and as it's grown, as the need has appeared, every corner has been repurposed. So the existing main floor east wing is our most crowded. And of course, unfortunately, the unintended consequence of that repurposing is that a lot of storage cabinets have gone out into hallways. And so that sense of people are trying to store more in their work cubicles, and the pathways are more crowded as well. This is the existing second floor. Again, you can see that there's no need for any change to the executive wing. And we know for sure that ICT is in the right place. They're adjacent to their servers. In terms of opportunities, there's definitely, this is the floor where we have most of the ancillary meeting rooms. We have both the staff lunchroom as well as the HR and ICT meeting rooms, which also serve a function as the emergency operations center in an event of operations. So again, not something we'd want to be moving. So the guiding principles that the committee created were designed to help with decision making and to reflect not only the priorities for making this decision, but also act as a project charter as we move forward to determine how we approach the solutions. So they're broken into 3 basic groups. For people, our goal is to facilitate and enhance customer service, repatriate and consolidate departments that are presently fragmented, co-locate business units that align with each other and or have frequent interaction, develop facilities to enhance employee experience, productivity and retention, and find a way to include a division of the RCMP and an option for archives. The second priority related to the guiding principles related to practicality, scope, and cost control. So the tests are reasonability and cost impact of changes to existing areas with minimal staff disruption, a sensitivity to existing investments, and fixed constraints, as I've already mentioned, finance and ICT, which are in the right place now. Optimize existing workspace within the areas of change and adopt solutions that can easily accommodate further change. Standardization and modularity is an important principle. Standardizing workspace types by functional requirement. This is a really important main point in that right now, if you look across City Hall, there's all kinds of different sizes of cubicles and offices, and it becomes really complicated when you're trying to accommodate growth. So our goal is to have a standard size and provision, but related to the function. So as an example, we assume that a standard cubicle should be about 50 square feet, but those individuals whose jobs require them to work a lot with plans and have a lot of bulky kind of plan review, they absolutely need more like 70 square feet. And then we have another category of employee who really only is at their desk at the beginning and the end of their shifts, so they generally need a much smaller, more like a library cubicle, about 30 square feet. We also want to develop flexible work areas to accommodate employee shifts, new technologies, and mobility between positions and types of work. Make provision for more meeting spaces and shared areas of collaboration, and make appropriate allowances for storage needs, day-to-day, long-term, and unique. And of course, the goal again is to review the growth that we have predicted in the next 2 to 5 years. The results of the recommended option for the ground floor sees engineering sharing the old library space with an RCMP work unit on an interim basis of approximately 3 to 5 years, followed by a city archive unit. The space in the rotunda that will be made available when the environmental services team moves to join the rest of engineering and public works will allow for office space for a new archive staff team. The glass block wall, if you can picture it in that rotunda area, can actually be removed to provide a public entrance and exit, so that you can we can set up a new engineering front counter, facilitating the customer service needs there. The main floor allows room for the reintegration of legal services as well as the community planning team to join the rest of community planning and development department on the main floor. The second floor, with the movement of community planning to the main floor, this allows the Parks, Rec and Culture Department to repatriate some staff from 640 Poirier and from the Innovation Centre. The next steps of the committee is to work with the impacted staff teams to develop floor plans and assign spaces. From those floor plans will be the genesis of tender documents for the structural, mechanical, electrical, and fit and finish, and of course the supply of any needed furniture. Followed by that, we're anticipating a phased move-in through the fall as each space is being renovated. Thank you. There are a couple of other members of our steering committee here to help answer questions if you have any at this time.
Thank you very much. We have questions from Councillor Reid. We'll start.
Thank you. I would like more discussion on this. I appreciate all the work that you've done and the thoughtfulness you've put in. I have questions like a while ago we talked about the RCMP and bylaws being together. So bylaws, RCMP, and legal would be an obvious assumption for me down on the ground floor. Ground floor space is primo space. To put an archive there doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. But I don't know. Obviously, some of the information you know. I don't know that the RCMP are doing something in 3 to 5 years, so that's news to me. The biggest concern that I have is I'd like to talk to your team, perhaps not right at this moment, but about actually the people. I always thought that planning and engineering should be together. Bylaws, legal, and RCMP, if we're going to have them, should be together. And ICT upstairs, obviously they're in the right spot. But there's lots of stuff like that that I'd like to hear some more reasoning behind and longer discussion. The thing that concerns me the most is the $750,000 to $1 million budget to do this. My God, I could build a mansion with a pool and a horse training place for that. I find that excessive, very excessive. If we were moving ICT or something, maybe, but to move desks and cubicles and things like that, I'm just astounded at this number and not at all pleased. Thank you.
A question? Okay, are there any questions? Councillor Robinson, please.
Thank you. I have a comment and a question. So my comment is I really appreciate the user-centered design because I think that it makes sense. And so I appreciate hearing that that's gone into the thinking. The question that I have has to do with if moving people from Parks and Rec from the Innovation Centre and Poirier, that then would free up space there. And has that been part of the thinking about, so what happens with that space? Has that been part of the exercise, or do we just need less, or are people just going to spread out more, or?
Part of the assumption through the chair is that the 640 Poirier building is pretty near the end of its lifespan, and so the next time we get faced with reinvestment in the infrastructure, whether it's a roof failure or boiler or whatever, we're going to be up against a wall there around moving staff out. At this point on that side of the building, the only occupants are Park, Rec and Culture staff.
So will we rent it out in the interim?
Absolutely, that would be part of the decision making.
Okay, so that would open up
yes
some rental. And what about the Innovation Centre?
That hasn't been fully explored, but there certainly are other options in the short term. I believe that the Evergreen task group is hoping to be able to move into any vacancy we create there.
Which would, again, be a rental
yes,
opportunity?
For 4 years, yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Reamer.
Thank you very much. I too was astounded at the amount of money that we thought we might need for these renovations. Having said that, I think you did a wonderful job. I always wondered why community planning was upstairs and our planning department was downstairs. So I think you've done a fabulous job that way. Councillor Reid alluded to the 3 to 5 years for the police contract, and actually it says in our report that we anticipate the RCMP to relocate in 5 years, and so my question was, why do we anticipate that?
I'm sure it's not. Okay. Mr. Dumas.
I can maybe speak to that and speak to what this move would do in terms of freeing up space and putting off the expansion over at the RCMP. There's a couple issues at play. We looked at space planning for RCMP in 2008, and at that time we concluded, based on hiring 9 additional RCMP every year, that we would be nearing capacity in the building at this time. Since 2008, we haven't hired staff at that rate. We had a timeout year. Last year we did 4, the year before we did 2. So we're not we're not at capacity like we thought we would be in 2012. Now we're looking at freeing up approximately 2,200 square feet in the library space to allow additional RCMP to move over there. And the thinking was to move integrated team members. And the plan is, and it's not been finalized, but RCMP is building a new headquarters in Surrey at Green Timbers. And there's talk about when that facility is completed, the integrated team members will then be centralized at that facility. So at that point in time, 3 to 5 years from now, those integrated team members may be moved to Surrey.
That's much
So
appreciated.
that's the basis for that.
That's great. Thanks for clarifying.
Thank you. Councillor Sikora.
Yeah, thank you very much. Number one, the price tag. It's just way out of line. I don't know what, we've got space there for library. I don't know what kind of renovation we'd have to do, but $1 million is certainly something that I could not support. If you had this place and you put all the things that you want to put in there, would that bring all the other employees that are in other buildings around the city within the city hall? Or we'd still have space rented out outside the city hall?
One of the work teams, Bill Susak might want to address this, but there's a preliminary discussion around moving one of the engineering teams from the works yard, and there'll still be space utilized for staff at the Innovation Center for about 15 staff, I believe.
Yeah, those are the things that really bother me. I mean, we're vacating a 13,000 square foot space, and now we're going to fill it up with some other bodies and switch things around and not bring all the people under one roof. That really, really bothers me to no end. I thought for 1 minute that we'd be bringing everybody under one roof, but looks like we've excluded staff and managers and everything else. We just seem to be growing out of proportion as far as bodies are concerned. Now, secondly, certainly the people that are on it have done a job, but I don't know whether it's a right body that should make these decisions. Because when I look at the list, I say to myself, what expertise have these people have in the field of relocating anybody, or who needs relocating here? And it certainly should have been the manager, the deputy manager, and the mayor should be writing this report. They're here most of the time, and the fact is, if the managers don't know what is working, what is not working, now how can I decide that as a layperson, as a council member? And I'm looking at people that are here on this team. I don't know what background they have to really, and I'm not criticizing that they didn't do a job and probably didn't study hard enough to see what best they can do. But I don't think that they've got the qualifications to make those decisions. And that's secondly, the problem that I do have with that. So I don't think there's anything else I can say.
If I could just address that issue. I mean, you have different kind of staff teams for a variety of issues. In this particular case, we wanted every department represented simply to flesh out a number of options. And they looked at a whole variety of options. It was augmented by expertise in space planning, and they had a consultant to assist them. But rest assured that I was involved, and John Dumont was involved in an overview manner in terms of listening to the various options that were brought to us. The various options, we saw them at a variety of stages along the way, culminating in an entire E-team discussion on the options and whether or not this was a supportable option, and we were involved in that end of the things.
Dan, it's certainly not listed as that. I feel maybe more comfortable if there was the wide array of the people that were involved in making these decisions. I just look at the report and I read the names, period. It doesn't tell me that there's another 4 or 5 people that were involved or anybody from the outside was involved, and those are things. Maybe this report is incomplete then. I don't know, but those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Neill.
Yes, thank you. Regarding the $1 million price tag, how much of that is needed for actual structural renovations or fairly significant renovations? You did notice, note that there would likely be a new front counter for the engineering and public works space that would face into the central rotunda. That would be pretty significant, I would guess. And that was a question I had in looking at the plans, wondering how the public would actually interact with this department in any way. So are there, so that would be some major renovation. Any other renovation that fairly major like that anticipated in this?
Yes, the Chair, we would be anticipating building a wall around the space where the RCMP will be, as well as changes to the mechanical and electrical systems to accommodate the security end, whether it's actually staff who need a separate space or the RCMP. There's some basic costs there. One of the points, thank you for giving me an opportunity to address that. This was a placeholder that was identified in 2011 as a placeholder, and so we aren't at the point where we can actually guarantee any lower price, but we're assuming that with all of the priorities related to practicality and scope, we'll be able to come in considerably under that. It'll be a matter of it going to the market and getting the best price we can for every step of the work we're doing.
That's good. And the second question that I have, it's something that the public gets confused about right now, and actually you stumbled over it yourself in your presentation. We have a ground floor, we have a main floor, and we have a second floor, which is actually our third floor. Do you see any opportunity to rationalize our naming system for this building, given this? I think it would be a good idea. Have you discussed that? Are you aware of the issue?
Absolutely. And
well, not only that, but the meeting rooms
are numbered.
The meeting
like
rooms on the second floor are numbered 400, and on the first floor are numbered 300.
That's right. That takes into account the subterranean parking lot being number 1. So it does get a little confusing, even for councillors, I guess. Yes, there we go. Yep. So are we going to rationalize?
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
Ms. Reinheimer, solve this problem.
It's easy. Yes, to the Chair, the intent is that we can look at that. We've stuck with the historic naming, so we didn't add more confusion by renaming them at this point, but certainly we can look at making it all make more sense to the visiting public as we move through this process.
Who is responsible for this numbering system in the first place? Anyway, no, let's not open that can of worms. Thank you. Yes.
Who was on council in 1997?
Yeah. Okay.
What's wrong with 1997?
It was a very good year for Bordeaux. Thank you very much.
Okay. It is something that confuses visitors all the time. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've been quiet until now because I have a number of things I'd like to discuss about this report.
Councillor Nicholson, if you would grab your email. I'm just going to go on to Councillor Asmussen for a second, and we'll do that. Thanks. Councillor Asmussen.
Well, thank you very much. Councillor O'Neill took part of my question on the cost of this, and what I do realize in our reports under next steps, it talks about working with a workspace plan designer to go over the assignment, how these floors will actually, the offices will be set up. And then after that, by function, tender documents we developed to actually get the full cost of this. Now, I understand this is going to cost a few dollars because you are moving refitting a whole area. You're moving basically engineering down a floor. So there's going to be a lot of shifting around of offices, a lot of moving, just costs involved, reconnecting up computers. So there's going to be a cost involved. I like the plan that you've come up with here, and I'm pleased how staff has worked together on this, co-locating facilities. I think there's a greater synergy in this plan for employees working together, and I think the biggest benefit is I think there's going to be better managerial oversight in this to function the city better and get a better flow and coordination throughout the city. So kudos to staff. I support this. I think this is a good direction that you're moving in. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Councillor Robinson and then back to Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. As I was listening to Councillor Sikora, it struck me that the folks who use the space the most were actually the folks who gathered together with help from a professional space planner. So I actually do think it was the right people coming together to make the right, to make the recommendations about what would be possible. So I think that was a really good process. The question I have is about the budget, which feels a little bit like you catch your breath. And we're trying to recall when we talked about moving the library out, was there budget for reconfiguring that existing space? Is this the same budget? This is the same number. It's not a new number. This is that number that we've been talking about the whole time around the moving the library. Okay, it's helpful. They're nodding. I just want to make sure I understand. I do think it's a bit rich. I do come from the nonprofit sector where it's the exact opposite in terms of workspace. But so I don't want to go too far in that direction because I do know what it's like to work in inadequate surroundings. At the same time, I would imagine that we have to be frugal. We have to be paying very close attention to what can we just adjust slightly to make it workable versus state of the art. I'd like to work within a really tight parameter, so we look forward to seeing how that plays out. Thank you.
Thank you, and back to Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to take this in camera, if I may.
Okay, we'll do that. A motion to move into camera is not debatable, so let's just we'll adjourn this item without a vote, and we'll move it in camera for a discussion. I don't know what it's about, but here we go. I have, we'll do that right after this. I'm looking at these numbers, the $750 to $1 million, which is a range of, I guess, $70 to $92 a square foot for tenant improvements of commercial space, which includes telephones and wire. I assume that's all the telephones. We're talking about a space that just had books, and now we'll have telephones and computer cables and lighting appropriate to those spaces. And all of the electronics appropriate to those spaces. Are there any, I guess you can't even tell me if there are any special measures related to the RCMP section, which may well, never mind, I can't even ask that. We may be able to discuss that in a minute. So at the same time, I suspect Council is going to say move toward the low end of that scale, because these are, we want us to be frugal with both the space, which was anticipated to be City Hall space 15 years ago when the City Hall was planned, and being able to take some of the RCMP pressure off, I think would be good as well. So, Councillor Sikora.
Yeah, thank you. With $1 million, it's like $400 a square foot for a renovation.
It's about 90.
So that's pretty rich.
It's about 90, Councillor Sikora.
You can build a building that under that, but $400 a square foot is just very, very rich. It's a gold-plated kind of thing.
Councillor Sikora, it's 11,000 square feet. $1 million would be $90 a square foot. 90.
90, yeah, you're right. Okay, even $90 a square foot. You build a house for less than $90 a square foot.
Okay. Thank you very much. Motion to adjourn? So moved. Moved by Councillor Asmussen, second by Councillor O'Neill. To adjourn, all in favor, opposed, carried. Thank you very much.